Welcome back to another episode of Kingdom of Dreams podcast and Making of Stories. I'm your host, Jawad Mir. Today my guest is Tom Spina of the Regal Robot. I had the pleasure of having him several months ago to talk about one of the Indiana Jones props. Today he's here to talk about the Ark of the Covenant Cherubim, and I'll let him talk about what it is and how the idea started and the challenges that took place behind the making of it. It's available as of today to pre-order from May 27th until June 10th. And just as an official side note, this is not a paid production. This is not a paid promotion. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Tom Spina. So tell me, what have you been up to since we last talked?
Oh boy. It's kind of nonstop lately. It feels like we've had one or two releases every month. Um, some of some a lot of times, I guess the best, the old adage where it's like the duck in the water, and you see the top of the duck on above the water and everything looks calm, and below the water is like, that's
Yeah,
us at all times, so we have these releases coming out, and it seems like this well-oiled machine of like, oh, okay, that's going to come out on Tuesday and there'll be an email about it and there's posts online, but behind the scenes it's just absolute craziness getting it going. But
I bet.
yeah, so it's that we've got a lot of planning we've got to do for San Diego Comic-Con. We've got some new releases that we've got to, kind of debut there and show folks for the first time. So right now we're finishing just planning, prototyping, and taking photos and preparing all that and getting all the Lucasfilm and Disney approvals, as you can imagine, is its own separate animal when it comes to this stuff. But it's hectic but fun and always an adventure.
That's amazing, man. That's exciting. I, you know, it's for the longest I've been trying to go to Comic Con,
Uh-huh.
and especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then I just after that I lost interest. But but last 2 years I've been trying to, and this year I said I'm gonna go, but then it turns out so far that I might be working on my film in that week, but we'll see. If I'm not, then I'm definitely making a trip to Comic Con this year. So we'll keep you posted. We might be able to hook up.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know. Let me know. At the very least, for us, it's either going to be Rob DiNicola, who helps me run stuff, or it'll be either him and me, or just him. We're
Right.
kind of playing it by ear. We've got some other travel, and I've got a little bit other travel around it. I'm just trying to make sure it all works. The last year it was supposed to be both of us, and I wound up with COVID at the last minute, like literally testing positive like 2 days before, the I was supposed to get on a flight kind of thing, and that was a lot of panic because we were all set, and all of a sudden it was just like, whoop, out the window, new plan. You know?
Wow. Last year, COVID, really? Is it still
Yeah,
happening?
yeah, go
Okay.
figure, right? Like completely random. I think it was my second or third time getting it, and it was, I don't know, it felt like it's. I remember the first time thinking, this is terrible. I don't want this again. And then, it definitely didn't improve the second and third time. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
Well,
bold
I hope.
stance, but I don't recommend it. So there we go.
Well, I hope this year, if you're planning to go wherever, it doesn't happen.
Thank,
It doesn't happen again. So,
thank you very much. Yeah,
yeah,
same.
amazing. So, what do you got back there?
What that? This over here?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
let me see. It's on a little, it's behind me, so it doesn't look as big until you get it. We also we accidentally made these really heavy. So
Oops.
before I hurt my back and lift it, I'll describe it first and then I'll bring
Sure.
it up. So I don't know. I think anybody who's watching your podcast probably can identify that just from the from seeing it in blurred out behind me. Uh, it is a one-to-one replica of the cherubim on top of the Ark of the Covenant from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Um, it's one of those pieces that I think people see all the time, but don't really appreciate everything that's involved in it all. Like the sculpture on this is just beautiful, and it's one of these pieces that we got to see at the archives at the Skywalker Ranch with all the other original props from Indy and Star Wars, and we a lot of times we see stuff there and that's what sparks us to make something. Um, and we were looking at the Ark, um, and just, I mean, one, because you can, but two, with the idea of like, okay, maybe there's some product in the future that involves the Ark. Maybe there's, whether that's some scaled thing or a decor piece or a replica or whatever. And a replica of the Ark would be intense. Like that would be a very large, not everybody would have room for this thing. Very complicated to build, very expensive, blah, 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 blah. But we looked at when we really looked at the cherubim, we're like, this is just like such a beautiful sculpture on its own that it could stand alone and still be amazing. And it could be something that, would go really well with the other stuff in our archive collection from the Indy collection. And it's funny if by the time this is live, these will be available on our site for a limited time. So just go to regalrobot.com, click the Indiana Jones logo, and it'll take you right to the page. There's a picture on that page that will show the cherubim next to the head of the Belloc staff, the Sankara stones we made, the urn of Nurhachi, even our Grail tablet wall decor, and together they just it's weird. There's this like more than the sum of its parts thing that starts to happen as you build these collections. And it really, really works as like a standalone piece, standalone in the sense separate from the Ark, but with all these other cool artifacts. So I'll bring it closer to camera so folks can get an appreciation of how big it is. It's oddly heavy. It's a big chunky piece, but it's like I think it's like when you get the Oscar, and the first
Well,
time you pick up a real Oscar, which I've been fortunate enough to do myself once, and boy, yeah, so heavy. So
that
there we go.
does look
This is
heavy for sure. Oh my
yeah.
God, look at the detail
So
on that.
solid resin, electroplated for a real metal, golden finish. It's got the print on the bottom. The finals will have, this is one of our prototypes, but it'll have a handwritten number at the bottom. So it's a numbered edition. What's really cool is, I don't think people get a sense that I don't know if it's going to focus. There we go. Oh, it did for a second.
Yeah, there you go. There
So
you go. It's in
there's
focus now.
actually a sculpted face and everything within there.
Yep.
Beautiful, just detail in the folds of the fabric and everything, and obviously, the wings and feathers. But it's just such an impressive piece. Uh, it really is something. Oh, man, I'm not I'm
What,
not
what,
putting this on for camera, folks. Like this really is legitimately heavy, and I'm also legitimately weak. So, it's just a bad combination.
so it would it be 10 to 15 pounds or heavier, you think?
I think it's 12 is
Oh,
where
12.
we settled.
Yeah.
It's about 17 inches long. It's a little under 10 inches tall, about 7 inches deep at the base. Um, and solid resin, electroplated. It's really a stunning piece. It's funny. We thought about adding a layer of distressing on it, which is something I like to do on faux metallic stuff because it really gives it some realism. But the electroplating came out so nice that one, it didn't need it to look real. It feels and looks like real metal, but two, it just felt more appropriate for this piece, the glowing iconic gold arc, that you wouldn't want this to look dirtied up the way like Belloc's staff is, which is something when you look at it, even in the movie, you can see there's distressing on it. So, we're sort of matching something with that. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. This is going to be available for a limited time. It's to make sure that nobody misses out, we're doing what we call a timed edition. Basically, it's available from May 27th through June 10th. It's a Tuesday to Tuesday. It's 2 week period. And just if you would like to get one of these, reserve yours before noon Eastern on June 10th, and just go to the Regal Robot website. You can do it. There's even a handy dandy payment plan. This is my like QVC pitch. The handy payment plan where you can probably pay less than $100 a month, and in 6 months it's all paid off. And we're expecting them to ship in about 6 months at the end of the year, quarter 4 of 2025. So it'll kind of sync up with when the payment plans end.
Nice. So just to we'll go into the product in a second, but you said June 10th is going to be available for pre-ordering, correct?
That's the last day you can order.
Last
So
day,
it goes
June
up
tw
on May
May 20th.
27th.
Okay, perfect.
So Tuesday the 27th. By the time people see this, it's probably already live, and then you will have this 2 week window to order. And anybody that orders in that 2 weeks, we will make sure they get one, or two if you're one of those people that wants to make it, match up, put it on top of the TV cabinet or something. Um, and at the end, after June 10th, we tally up all of the orders. We talk with our retailers who have offered these, which I don't know exactly who's going to offer them yet. Usually, that winds up being people like Big Bad Toy Store or Secret Compass, things like
Sure.
that. And once they give us their numbers, we settle on the edition size, we finalize it, and we cap it, and then that's it. They're no longer offered.
Lovely. That sounds very exciting, and I love I mean, I could, obviously I'm not there physically, but I could, the way the detail is that you can feel the texture that it has even remotely, and
Nice.
I can picture. You talked about dust. It'd be really cool to. I remember when I was growing up, we used to have these. Don't ask me how. We used to have these stuffed life-size peacocks.
Oh, wow.
Um, and like literally in their authentic detailed shape as if they were just standing there. And
Uh-huh.
we always kept them in this glass, massive glass
Oh,
closure,
like,
so
uh-huh.
no dust goes on it. So maybe that's something people need
Oh,
to,
yeah.
right?
I could see a nice acrylic cover over something like this on top of a cabinet or on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Um, I'm always so we have this. If people go to Facebook and look up the Regal Robot Facebook group, not just the actual page, but we have a group where um, it's so cool because like we make all this stuff and like it goes away, and we see it in the context of our studio, or we see it in the context of maybe it's on a shelf in our office or something like that. But seeing it in people's homes is just a total other thing, and it's always so great. Somebody recently got the first batch of the Belloc staffs that we did went out recently, and those are going out. Those are all being made in combination. Um, they're cast and everything, but then they have to go out for plating, and those are being done stateside, and they're being done in batches of like 10 or 12 at a time. So those are going to be made over a long period. But it just means for us every few weeks we're going to see another batch of these go out. We'll see more and more people posting these pictures. But yeah, somebody posted a shot of it's the full length Belloc staff hanging on the wall next to two of the stone dart shooting faces from the temple
Oh
that we
wow.
make, and I think he had the Grail tablet on the wall, and he had the urn on a shelf, and it's just like seeing it all together like that, and just in like a home setting, not staged, not pro lighting or anything, just like this guy has brought something we made into his life, and that's just so cool.
That is, I love how you put that. The guy has brought something that you have created into his life. That's amazing. And just look, even if you're not an Indiana Jones fan, like a hardcore, which there are a lot of them, it's just, if you've grown up with Indiana Jones or even have seen the recent films, there's just so much stuff in there that your company or somebody else or for that matter can just make on and get, as long as you keep getting licenses, like you just keep on
Yeah.
making them, right?
There,
And sorry, go on.
yeah. No. I mean, there's like between Star Wars and we keep talking about other licenses and stuff here at the shop, and the biggest reason we don't do it is because we're tired. No, that's part of it, but it's because there's so much we want to do with Star Wars and Indy, and it's funny. We love the deep cut stuff, right? So we're more than I think any other licensee. Uh, we're going to continue to be inspired by these movies and by the stuff in them. There's so much in all of them that were made. ILM worked so hard on these movies, and even UK art department and the prop makers and the oh gosh, right on down the list. Rental houses, everybody that worked on all of the original Star Wars movies, all the prequels, all the sequels, all the Indiana Jones movies how could you run out of inspiration
Yeah,
of
I
stuff
agree.
to make? And like I have the collector bug, like I want this stuff for myself. Like that's, you know, a very, very big driver of what we make is, Rob and I going like, it'd be really cool to have this. We should make that. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, I really love the Tusken Raider mask. Let's make a life-size bust of the Tusken Raider.
yeah.
Um, and luckily, there's a lot of other people who feel the same way. So it makes it very nice for us.
That's amazing. It's interesting you talked about Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and there's like what, five Indiana Jones films, and there's a TV show, but Star Wars universe is like, blown
Yeah.
up in the last 7, 8, 10 years. But there's one film which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year that still has, you guys probably don't do them, but I'm just talking about it from a standpoint of just one film. I mean, there's multiple, but only one has the celebration, Jaws. If you
Oh,
go
wow.
there,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Its 50th anniversry this
Yeah.
summer.
That
They
is
have
nuts.
they even have a 50th anniversary. Like fans have a 50th anniversary page where they're getting together at the it's called Amityville, I think. Um,
Or the whatever
Martha
stood in for
Martha
Amity.
Vineyard Martha
Yeah.
Martha Vineyards,
Yeah.
and there's a website, and they break down scenes, especially the. I'm going off topic, but I'm just talking about the
Oh no,
fan.
that's yeah.
The cylinder scene, the finale. It
Yeah.
would it have exploded if Roy Scheider shot from that
Right.
distance? And they actually did a test that
That's
if
great.
So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's crazy that how much impact these films have
Yeah.
on people, and especially films like these. It's like what, 50 years almost in 2 years to
Yeah.
Star Wars,
I'm
right?
trying to think, when well, I guess there's examples of it. You go back to when we were younger. Um, King Kong was still influential at the
That's
time.
true.
That was 50 years old in 83, right?
Yeah,
The Wizard of Oz was still massively influential. Um, Maybe I don't know that it was as world changing perhaps as Star Wars kind of was. Um, and maybe it's, yeah, I don't know. It's funny because you especially in getting to know a lot of the people that worked on these movies, the Star Wars films, the Indiana Jones films, um, they're all deeply inspired by Ray Harryhausen, by Willis O'Brien, by King Kong, by The Wizard of Oz, by all of these films from even most of them before they were even born. So those films had some lasting impact. Um, but I don't know, man. It's tough to match what something like Star Wars or Indy or Jaws has done. I mean, Jaws really, that's the first sort of modern blockbuster
yeah.
in a way,
Change
right?
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
And to follow it up, what always amazes me is you look at a movie like Jaws and it takes place in a period. Um, but it never feels dated for some reason. And that's probably credit to a good story told well, and there's a certain director behind that.
Yeah.
um, but it's one of those rare movies because there's a lot of movies from that same era. You look at something like Logan's Run that came out at the same year, um, and every time you watch that, you go, which, by the way, it's fine. It's a fun movie. I love it. But I just sit there and on the opening sort of tracking shot of the city model, you just sit there and you go like, how is this months before Star Wars? Like you can track that change in what was acceptable in terms of effects, literally right there, and it's like, um, you look at something like that versus Jaws, and you're just like, one of them, even though it's set in space, is screaming 70s, and the other one, you just overlook it completely. It's amazing to me.
It is, and then I think there was um, the reason I feel that Star Wars, Indy, and E.T., Jaws, and all these films, I think that 70s and 80s and maybe even 90s era is probably three different decades that they were like all this memorabilia was coming out, which wasn't there before, like King Kong and Wizard of Oz to that extent, and now
Right.
it's gone another level. But I think those three decades had some of the most interesting films, at least for us. I think the next generation is like 2007, 2008 onwards with the superhero films and all that.
Right. True.
But there was just something about those three decades that it was not just one type of film, one genre, right?
Mm.
Like you had sci-fi, you had thriller, you have horror. All these have
Right.
products that have been made. And you were talking about how did they do a certain shot in what was that movie you said?
Oh, Logan's Run,
Logan's
the
Run, right?
tracking shot in the beginning. Yeah.
Yes, I remembered. I don't know if I forgot. I was just Googling it and I can't remember what it was. I saw this clip on Instagram. I'm guessing it was a Mexican film in 19. I know it was definitely 1960s, 1965. It was, and they said the same thing. How did they pull this off? It was a massive funeral, right? Like maybe 10,000, 20,000 people.
Oh
And they're
gosh.
carrying this one coffin. And the camera starts off on the ground and then it tracks back and it goes up, 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 up on like the fifth or sixth or seventh floor. And this is way before, I don't even think there were jibs or cranes, but let's assume there
Right.
was. Then it goes inside the building, then it comes out the other window, then it goes over the crowd into the other side of the street in the building. Then you have people like actually, sewing something. And then you
Right.
see the people following the window, and then the camera goes out the window, down again, back to where it started in one shot.
Wow. That's amazing. I would
So
love to see how they did
I,
that.
I I'll Google that and I'll find out
Yeah,
and
if you
I'll
can
email it
find
to
it,
you.
send me the link.
But it
That's
was
yeah.
crazy.
Meanwhile, now it's like, every home show on like HGTV where someone goes in and renovates a house has drone shots all
Yeah,
over it.
yeah,
And you're just sitting here going like, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have had to rent a helicopter for that and nobody would have had this shot. And a Steadicam, you know? It's like now everybody's got these smooth as silk drone shots on every show. And it's just it's wild.
it is. And I think one of the lessons that I learned, the very first film that I directed, which was between 2013 and 2016, and that's when the drones were coming out.
Mm,
I had a lot of, it was like a naturistic small village, kind of like, Jaws, but I had a lot of drone shots. And after that, I realized I'm not doing any drone shots because it just takes you away. And now my whole thing is I don't want any drone shots. I don't want any crane shots. I just want to be on the ground unless it's
yeah,
required, like, sure, but just for the hell
right.
of it,
Yeah.
it
Well,
takes you away.
there is something about I remember the some of the oh gosh, probably the Toby and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, you know, they always had these the swinging through the city shots where the camera's following them and ducking in and out of things and around. And for me, those always killed it. Like I just instantly got taken out of it because I'm like, I know a camera can't do that. Even on a drone, a camera would have trouble with that. And it
Yeah.
just automatically feels false, and put on. And, you know, the occasional dynamic shot, great, something that builds some excitement or whatever. But when it's all the time, it just starts. What's the old Incredibles line? When everyone's super, no one will be. It's
Yeah.
like that, but with
Yeah.
drones.
100%. 100%. You're so right, man. You're so right. And, we can talk about movies and everything all day,
Yeah,
all the time, but
that's fine.
going back to the product that you're launching,
Yeah.
tell me what were some of the biggest challenges in getting
Um,
it done, aside from licensing, like I'm talking in
oh yeah, yeah.
production.
So there's a couple things. One is that the original is gold plated, or metallic plated, whatever. Um, and that's really tough to 3D scan. And so, you can't use a structured light scanner for that. You've got to use laser, and luckily we've got both options and things like that. But, so the initial hurdle is, just the physical, like grabbing the information off of this thing so for reproduction. Um, From there, it's, digital cleanup, and that's tricky too because you've got to now interpret that data and close up any holes and things like that and use photographs that we took and measurements and things just to double check everything. Um, but you're dealing with this highly reflective thing that's tough to photograph too. So, there's all of those steps. Now you've got to output this at full size. It's a large piece. It doesn't just print on any printer. You can't run it on like a filament machine. This has to be run in ultra high res because otherwise you're going to wind up spending all your time sanding it and taking away details that you don't want to lose. Um, from there, now you're going to talk about electroplating and making sure, for us, one of the big challenges was getting the right thickness
Mm,
because the inclination of most platers is to go thicker because they're like, oh, well, this gets you a more even tone. This gets a better look. And for starters, I would say this, and this is true for like the Gold Idol. It's true for a lot of things that are in the archives, C3PO and RA7 and droids and stuff like that. Um, the plating on the original pieces of these things is not what you would consider beautiful, high quality plating that you would want to put on your shelf. It's riddled with flaws and orange peel and sometimes cracking and discoloration and all of this other stuff. Some of which is just age, but a lot of it is just the nature of the process. Um, and so, for us, it's not necessarily about the pursuit of a perfect finish, but it is about the pursuit of a finish that lets the details show through. And so for us, it
nice.
took a couple of tries. It was, I think the third one we did was the one where it was like, okay, that's the right thickness. Don't go thicker than that. And then the other thing was also getting the right color on the gold because, you can't just say gold, right? Like, because there's really orangey gold, there's really bright white gold, almost silver. There's sort of anywhere in between, and we had to find the right one that felt bright enough. It's shooting in here. I would say it's shooting a little whiter than it really is. It's a little more of a rich yellow gold. But it's beautiful. The funny thing is there are two arcs at the archives, one of which was replated in a super orange gold, like
Oh,
really orange, like immediately wrong when you look at it orange. Um, but and we talked with folks who were there when that got replated and things like that, and it just kind of like, you know, there's not a ton they can do about it after the fact, unfortunately. But so we wanted to definitely avoid that. So
fair
it was
enough.
just I think the plating is probably the number one challenge. The other thing is, moving these things around, they have to. So, this is going to get a hand carved foam insert. So three-dimensionally carved, but just dug out by hand so that, the box it comes in, I think is roughly 22 by 13 by 10 or so.
Hmm.
They're going to come in a full color box or at least a gloss box. So it'll be probably black with um, there's a basic high-end collectible look that a lot of Lucasfilm stuff gets. And then the styrofoam insert inside with the piece in it, and then that gets double boxed into a corrugated craft box outside. So when it ships to you, it's what they call double box shipping. So everything we can do to get them to folks home safe. We've shipped a bunch of these at this point between, the platers and us and going back and forth. And we've had, samples going to Disney and Lucasfilm and a couple of people who are doing reviews. So knock on wood, so far they're all making it. And so far everybody that's received one, whether that's the reviewer or Disney people or Lucasfilm people, have been really impressed with it. I always like when our Lucasfilm rep gets it and it's like, this is going in my office, like that's a good sign, you know, because sometimes he'll get stuff and he's like, oh yeah, yeah, it's really nice. It's approved. And then you go the next time and it's like in somebody else's office and you're like, you gave that away, you know?
That's incredible. You talked about shipping.
Yeah.
Has any time ever one of your product before it's been released, maybe by some random event, it's goes missing during shipping?
Oh gosh. That's like a nightmare. How could you put that into the universe? Um, uh,
No,
we've
I meant
knock
I
on
meant
wood, we haven't had a one of a kind go missing.
I meant more in a sense of if there was somebody who is a UPS or FedEx
I
employee,
got you. Yeah,
and,
sees the logo.
if there was an indie or a Star Wars hardcore fan and they decide to jeopardize their job just to get
Right.
on something, right? But but that was the angle that I was looking at. Um,
I mean, look, fandom
but
takes people in a lot of directions, sometimes into crime. You know, like
that's
I
true.
think you've
That's
just
true.
picked up your next movie. You know, it's the shipping guy collector and like, what he pulls together for himself.
100%. I wanted to sort of touch on two more things. So you talked about Comic Con.
Hmm.
Uh, what are you guys doing at Comic Con, and why not launch this product or at least the pre-order date around that?
So, good pair of questions. So, what we're doing at the show is what's called the Lucasfilm High-End Collectibles Update Panel. We've been a part of that for the last few years running. Brian Merton from Lucasfilm runs that, and it's basically where the sort of top of the top high-end collectible companies come together and announce to folks what they're going to be doing the next year. Um, or for us, at least a small batch of the things that we're going to be doing the next year, because we always wind up having so much more. Um, that actually answers the second question, which is why didn't we save this for Comic Con? We have too much coming that we could push anything else off. So we have
Mm,
this coming out,
I figured.
uh, which is so yeah, this is available now, and then around July 1st, we actually have another indie piece coming, something really unexpected, something very us. Something that is it's going to be all crafted by the artists in our shop in New York. Uh, it's it's really, really cool. It's something I have never seen done. Usually with indie stuff, like there's usually like, oh, I've seen a fan made version of that, or I've seen someone do that. It's based on something we saw at the archives. It's super unusual for a licensee, super unusual really for anyone, and I can't wait to spring that on folks. But even that, we're not saving for Comic-Con. Um, that said, I think what you can imply from that is that we do have some very interesting stuff to show at Comic Con as well. A couple of pieces in particular that I'm really excited about for Star Wars, a few pieces for Indiana Jones as well. I would expect, I think last year we debuted 8 or 9 pieces. Maybe this year it'll be 5 or 6, but um, actually, now that I'm thinking about that, that's actually probably low because I know one or two of these things that we're going to be showing, certainly on the Star Wars side, are really almost lines, quote unquote. So it'll be like, maybe it's one slide, but it'll be showing 2 or 3 products that are going to be coming. So we I don't want to go too far by accident and say anything more.
That's fine.
But
So for the July 1st product,
yeah.
can you give a reference to which indie film?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Once
Speaking,
this one's in the can, so probably by mid-June we'll be able to talk a
you'll
little bit
know.
about that. We don't like to tease things too early. It's there's a sort of wave of excitement that comes from something new coming out. And there's always so much getting thrown at collectors, whether that's stuff that comes up in the parks, stuff that fans are making, stuff that places like we're making, other licensees, exclusives oh gosh, like Hallmark or whatever, people doing ornaments and things. Um, so it's real easy for people to get excited about one thing and then, oops, I spent all my money on something else. So we will try and
Yeah.
we try and keep it a little tighter these days than we used to. We used to try and announce earlier. Now it's a mix. But I like to at least give people like the hey, another indie thing's coming around here. And if you like what we've done in the past, you're probably going to like what
Yeah.
we do in the future.
And I think it makes sense because even 10 years ago, things were a lot different, and people's attention span is so short, and there's so much information out there
Yeah.
that, I mean, I forget about things that are coming out, even
Yeah.
as big as as a film, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a good move. And when we started this conversation, we were talking about to Ark, and I happened to rewatch Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull again after a
Oh
while,
yeah,
just
yeah.
3, 4 weeks ago. And while you were talking about that, because there's the Ark reference in that
Right.
film in the beginning,
Yeah.
and now I don't know if this product is already out. Maybe I'm behind. Maybe you guys have done it or somebody else. What about the Crystal Skull?
The Disney parks put out a version of that that's
They
actually
did.
really
Okay.
good. Um, it's probably I'm just talking theoretically here because I don't have one in
Yeah,
front
yeah.
of me, but my recollection is it's a tiny bit undersized from the original. I don't know if I would say dramatically, but it to me it feels a bit undersized, and the finish is similar, but there's some distressing and stuff that isn't on there. But it's a really great piece, and it's so cheap. I don't remember the price offhand, but I remember looking at it and going like, you know, for a smaller licensee like us, I just look and I go like, how do you? It helps that when it's a parks piece, they're not paying themselves royalties and stuff like
Yeah,
that, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But it's astounding some of the prices they've done on the park stuff. Not that I should go off selling their stuff for them. Go to Regal Robot, buy our stuff instead. But we love Disney. It's great. You know?
Yeah. No, I mean it makes sense because sometimes, like you said, like for you to produce something and it's probably maybe a little bit better for somebody, a lot of people, it may not be worth it to spend more money, right? And then you guys have to put so
Yeah,
much money in.
it's a sliding scale. Like I think the I like to think that, if we're going to put something out, it's going to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
Which is, a bold thing to say, and I'm not trying to brag on anything. I'm just, if we're going to do it, we only want to do it if we can do it right. And
Yeah. Yeah.
what you're saying is true though. If you have a piece that's out there and it's a 7 on a scale of 10 and we put one out that's an 8 or a 9, is that difference going to be enough for someone to want to buy the new one, or and trade up? Usually people don't push to trade up until they get you know a real dramatic difference. Either the piece they've had is falls short dramatically, or the piece that's coming out is just knocks your socks off, or does something different that the other one doesn't do, whether it's an authenticity thing, whether it's a lineage thing, or some sort of the effect or things like that. We
That
put a ton
glowing.
of thought into that.
Yeah.
It's a thing that we run into a lot in terms of whether uh, there is another licensed version of something out there, whether there was a licensed version from 20 years ago that people still have or is available on the secondary market, whether there's some fan made version of it. There's a lot of people we're competing with for money. There's a lot of people we're competing with for shelf space. There's, and in terms of when you're just talking about the collector's dollar, now you're competing not just with Indy, you're competing with everything these people collect because nobody collects just one
Everything
thing.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that also goes into our
Yeah.
timing with stuff and wanting to, you know, space things out a little bit when it's something that's bigger, and maybe the smaller stuff you can hit a little more rapidly. Um, yeah, this is all, these are very long conversations we have at the shop all the time.
Yeah. No, I bet. And it's just one of those things where you have to, make sure that maybe in about 20, 25 years, or maybe even less, maybe 10, 15 years, maybe Disney Parks is not selling it. And then maybe
Right.
you can make something
Yeah,
that's
maybe there's
more,
room for that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that
It's
I would
No, it's a cool piece. I mean, in terms of certainly from that film, I mean, that's the piece. Um,
yeah,
in a
yeah.
sense, if somebody wants a Kingdom of the Crystal Skull prop, though, the Ark made an appearance, so technically,
It
that
is.
cherubim is technically it's a twofer. It's in both of them. So
Good point. I
there
like
you
that plugin.
go.
Awesome. No, that's really exciting, man. It's incredible what you guys do.
Thank you.
Like I said to you last time, I'm not as over the top, if you want to use that word, Indiana Jones fan, but in terms of collectibles, but I do appreciate all the stuff that's out there because it reminds a lot of us. And the reason people get stuff is because it just reminds them of their childhood and probably the best time of their life. And what you guys are doing is sort of giving that rebirth and making people feel remember their better days. Not that their life is not great now, but just,
Yeah.
overall, it's a different set
Listen,
of life and different set of circumstances.
that's it. No, and that's beautifully said. And I'm, honored that that's how you think about it. I think that's the best thing you could give someone.
I'm glad, man. Keep doing what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
I'm excited about the July 1st. You got
Yeah.
me really curious now. You got me really curious now.
After the recording stops, I'll give you a hint. How about that?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good time.